Chief Washington correspondent and host of Face the Nation, Bob Schieffer, is with us. Bob, good morning.
Hey.
Do you have some sense that the Affordable Care Act may be dying a death of 1,000 cuts because so much is going wrong?
Well, there's going to be health insurance for people. I mean, it's the law and they'll get it done. But I mean, this thing is broken and they got to fix it. And, you know, they're holding these briefings every day. But, you know, when you have a briefing and somebody said, did Secretary Sebelius know about it? And the briefer says, next question. I mean, this has gone beyond talking points.
So how did all this happen?
And the PR roll-up. Well, it doesn't work. The website doesn't work. I mean, there are some people say it would have taken 5 years to build a website like this, and you should have tested it for a year.
Do you think they will get it working, Bob? They supposedly have the best and the brightest minds working on it now.
Well, I mean, where were the best and the brightest minds when they built it? I mean,
well, there's a lot of everybody's going like this. There's a lot
of
finger pointing in Washington.
Well,
right
yeah,
now.
there's a lot of finger pointing, and it's embarrassing and all that. But I mean, it's just a case if the washing machine doesn't work, you got to get the repairman in there and fix it. And that's going to take some time, and it's a lot more complicated than fixing a washing machine. They'll get it fixed, but it's not going to be done tomorrow.
Well, you have some breaking news this morning. I know on Face the Nation you're going to be talking about the JFK assassination 50 years later in this new book by Philip Shenon. What have we learned that's never been heard before?
What is interesting, and this is the book, Phil Shenon was an investigative reporter for the New York Times for a long, long time, and he has done just a magnificent job of investigating and connecting the dots of how the Warren Commission investigated this thing. And, you know, he doesn't dispute their conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone gunman, and he again underlines what the rest of us have been saying for years. There's no evidence to suggest there was a conspiracy or anybody else involved. But what he also makes clear is the FBI and the CIA really misled the commission. Both of these agencies were so afraid that they might be blamed because they knew of Oswald and they had been watching him in Mexico City. And they just wanted to make sure their agencies weren't blamed. They didn't play straight with the Warren Commission.
But there were always questions about Fidel Castro.
This is one of the interesting little tidbits in this book. It's a secret that has held for 50 years. The commission actually sent an investigator to the waters off Cuba. They took him in a U.S. Navy boat. He got onto a yacht. There was Fidel Castro, and Castro had sent word that he wanted to talk to the commission. And this was thought to be so controversial they didn't do it. Anyway, the investigator gets off the boat, talks to Castro. They talk for 3 hours. Castro says, well, as you would expect, no way, no how did I have anything to do with it. And it turns out, and to me, this is the most fascinating part of all, that young investigator was William Coleman, who later became Secretary of Transportation in Gerald Ford's administration.
Even more interesting, he had met Castro early in Harlem.
Yes, they both liked music. Yeah. And he had first met Castro when Castro apparently was on his honeymoon in Harlem. They both loved jazz. And they came to know each other. They weren't friends, but that's why they decided it would be Coleman to go down there and do it.
You were really no stranger to scoops on this story. I remember learning on this actual broadcast that you were the reporter that had Lee Harvey Oswald's mother in the car. Through the telephone call came and you ended up driving her. Does it surprise you? I'm curious about that. But does it surprise you that 50 years later we are still learning something new?
You know, it really doesn't, because you know, people are still asking questions about Lincoln's assassination and about Julius Caesar's assassination. There are just all these questions that people have because Oswald was never put on trial. I think a lot of this might have been put to rest had he been put on trial. But then this bizarre thing where this striptease joint operator, Jack Ruby, shoots him and thinks that he'll become a national hero. Well, of course, he didn't. He did enormous damage. But
you're in the car with Lee Harvey Oswald's mother because you were a reporter, beat reporter back there covering police. You pick up the phone.
Yeah. I worked at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and it was total bedlam. I was on the city desk just trying to help them answer the phone. And a woman calls in and says, is there anybody there who can give me a ride to Dallas? And I said, lady, we're not running a taxi here, and besides, the president's been shot. And she said, yes, I just heard on the radio, I think my son is the one they've arrested, which I always, when young reporters come to me, they say, what advice? I say, answer the phone.
Answer the
When the
phone.
phone rings,
Always.
don't let it ring. And to this day, I cannot let a phone ring more than one ring. My wife gets mad at me. She said, look at the caller ID. It's probably some telemarketer. I can't help myself.
Your
I
story's
answer
in the
that
book.
phone.
Your story's in the book.
Yes.
I think that's good advice. I feel the same. Thank you, Bob Schieffer.
You bet.
Answer the phone. Bob Schieffer on Sunday, along with Philip Shenon. He will interview Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen also, and Republican Congressman Darrell Issa. You can watch Face the Nation Sunday morning right here on CBS.